As we are about to start, we're going to read a message from the Christian agenda, Realities. The clown that you mock is frequently a brave soldier of good cheer. The extremely adorned woman of whom you usually disapprove is on many occasions dressed like that in order to help a great number of working hands. The singer who performs smiling, from whom you often turn away in boredom, in the belief that you are preserving your own virtue, is usually trying to earn bread from many needy relatives, and those deserve consideration and respect. A well-to-do person who appears to you to be lazy and unproductive is perhaps involved in projects that you would never find the animation to tackle. Do not judge others by their appearance. The truth, like the kingdom of God, is never displayed in outward appearances.
Dear God, we are happy to be here again one more time for the study of the Spirit's book and the Spiritist doctrine. Please help us to open our heart and our mind to learn and to make all the changes in our life that we already can to become a better person. So be it.
Welcome everyone, ourselves and all of those in spirit, and also those who may be following us through the live transmission for our weekly study on Spiritism, Inspiring Lives. It's an interactive study where we are learning together about the Spiritism as immortal beings as we all are, and what we can learn on a weekly basis, what Spiritism brings us to inspire us as immortal beings. We have this study bringing consoling, because Spiritism is a consoling, a hopeful message that comes from the superior enlightened spirits who bring the message from Jesus, who brings the word of God. And in that way, last week we explored a lot about what is Spiritism, because we are still working on the fundamentals of Spiritism, building the foundations of the understanding of Spiritism. So today we start just for us to situate ourselves with the words of the Spirit Aulus from the book In the Domains of Mediumship, when he has a special way to refer to us what is Spiritism. He says, symbolically, Spiritism is Jesus returning to the world, inviting us to individual growth through constructive and incessant work. How do we understand Aulus' words at present when he says that symbolically speaking, Spiritism is Jesus returning to the world? What comes to our minds as immortal beings as we are when we read that? Is Jesus is the model and guide for humanity? Okay, we depart from that. So now Aulus is saying, inviting all of us, incarnates, which is our case, and all of those who are in spirit also on earth, to individual growth through constructive and incessant work. What do we understand about individual growth? What comes to our minds?
What reminds me is in the book Action Reaction, at the introduction, Emmanuel says, he says for sociologists, their purpose is one way, for philosophers, the purpose is the other way. For Spiritism, our purpose is to work on our spirituality. As Spiritists, that's why we came on earth, to work in the field of the Master, incessantly working on ourselves through the work. So it's not that we're perfect working, we're becoming better through the work that we're constructing within ourselves. Because if you think about it, when we talk about Spiritism, we can't say certain things unless we're living it. It just doesn't come out across, and it's easily perceived because we have a cloud of testimonies around us. So that incessant work and constructive work as Spiritists is to work firstly within our inner world, isn't it?
Okay. What else came to us? What are we invited to develop within? Because grow, individual grow means internal development. What? What are we invited to develop?
Our morals.
Or ethical moral values such as?
Honesty,
Humbleness.
Learn to be humble, to start with, in order for us to position ourselves in a learning position. And be humble doesn't mean that we are with less value, but on the contrary, when we rescue ourselves from the egoistic state of mind, we realize that humbleness is inner strength, is real value that comes from the essence of ourselves, because the essence of ourselves is the essence that comes from God. Okay, so humbleness, honesty. What else can we, as immortal beings, to grow internally?
Patience.
To learn to be more patient. Yes. What else? Which other virtuous aspects? Forgiveness, which is very, very important for all of us, merely because all of us are learners and all of us do mistakes. So developing the ability of forgiveness is a training of developing the ability of self-love. Because if we don't learn to forgive, we are not loving ourselves. Yes. But forgiveness, what else? We learn to be charitable, or if you would say also charitable towards ourselves, towards others, towards the environment where we are, always growing within with the ability to cooperate with the work of goodness for everyone, so that we freely, spontaneously choose to cooperate with the proposal of Jesus and others. Yes, and then you said charitable, then we can also say learn to grow through developing charity. And then when we again refer to Jesus, charity means learning to grow, to develop ourselves constantly in being more benevolent towards everyone, more indulgent towards everyone. Forgiveness, you already mentioned, which is the work that is available for all of us. Yeah.
I was speaking also about self-motivation and discipline, because when Allan says incessant work, we learn in the Spirit's book that what makes the higher spirits happy is the knowledge of everything. So we will need to know everything.
Yes.
Not in one incarnation, obviously, but it's incessant work.
Yes, the work here is mainly referring to the internal movement of actualization within the laws of nature, which are God's laws. So that when we choose to restructure ourselves mentally, emotionally, through the behavior, we are in constant work, in constant movement. Work here means movement. Yes? Okay. Anything else?
Fraternity.
To learn to be more fraternal. What is that important?
Because we are here to learn to love. And to learn to love, we need to be more fraternal with each other.
Okay. So in order to learn to love, which is the main purpose to be here, we are invited to freely, spontaneously, to re-educate ourselves and free ourselves from pride and selfishness. Because in that way, we can learn to be more fraternal in a Christian way. But if we are dominated by pride and selfishness, then quite often we are not in that movement of growing. To learn to be more solidarious, yes, which is a solidarity as well. Growing in understanding that we are all brothers and sisters in humanity. So observing where we are internally, and that is vital in this stage where we are on earth now. We are not better because we are Spiritists. We are not better if we are Buddhism, or we are not better if we are Catholics. We are just children of God, all of us going through different schools of learning. We are not better because our background is, let's say, more wealthy than others, or because we come from one culture than others. We are all children of God, granted the possibility to come back once more through the law of reincarnation for us to carry on our growing, spiritually speaking, wherever we are placed temporarily. Okay, so in that way we move on then today, as we situated ourselves to finalize what is Spiritism. Now we reflect about what Spiritism reveals. It reveals more profound concepts with respect to God, the universe, the human being, the spirits, and the law which govern life itself. How is that coming to us today? When Spiritism reveals what we just read. A more profound concept. How is that coming to us?
Because we've had the knowledge around for several centuries, haven't we? But Spiritism makes it more profound because it teaches us to think for ourselves. And then we go into our inner world to develop our way of understanding what God is, what the universe is, not reaching any conclusions, but the reflections, I think, are profound. You know?
When you mention we have those concepts for centuries and centuries, what was the concept regarding God before Spiritism? Which concept did we as humanity have about God?
The gentleman with white beards and
Correct.
Quite human.
Okay. What else?
We even have, I mean, in the African religions, as in parts of nature, it was the god of the sea, the god of the lightning. So we attributed things to nature that was God. With our infantile way of looking at things. We were looking for God everywhere, weren't we?
So in that, let's say, developing process through our evolution, where we were much more immature, much more infantile, would we also be right and say that we learned, all of us, some already freed, others not, that God was punishing us? That is, I think, a concept that we really want to free ourselves from. Because now within Spiritism, we learn that God is love. He loves us all since the creation. And there is no reason for us to feel angry, whatever, through what we learned, whatever. It's just time to actualize ourselves and understand it is part from different schools of thought that we emerged for centuries and centuries. What we learned outside the reality of life, now we are blessed with the opportunity to build new concepts. God is love, never punishes his creatures, which are us. About the universe, do we have any different view now? In the old days, I think many, many centuries back, we thought that Earth was the universe. Precisely. Thank God that we evolved already a bit. Now we see that the planet Earth is a little, yes, part of it. About the human being, what is different? What Spiritism reveals about the human being, which differs from the old concepts? How was the human being conceived in the old ages back?
The be-all and the end-all of everything.
Sorry, Abin?
The be-all and end-all of everything. It's like an expression that we're at the top of the top of creation. And we know that this is a temporary phase that we're going through as immortal spirits.
Okay.
That's going through evolution.
Okay. Would I also be right in saying that in the old days, and even for some these days, that a human being was perceived as a bodily being, biological being. And now we do understand through Spiritism that we are three-dimensional beings. Spirits who have an astral body or perispirit, as we call it, and we temporarily are moving through our physical body. But we are not the physical body. It changes, yes? The spirits and the laws which govern life itself, which we will explore later on. Furthermore, let's, Cynthia, read it for us, please.
Furthermore, it reveals who we are, where we have come from, where we are going to, what is the objective of our existence, and what are the present and past causes of pain and suffering.
What do we take from this part now, what Spiritism reveals to us? How could we reframe it with our own words? For us, and also for those who in spirit are also studying with us, perhaps never heard about it.
So it reveals who we are. And
Yes,
we know that.
and who we are.
And who are we?
We are spirits.
Yes, it's important because sometimes our brothers and sisters who are studying with us who never heard about that. So for us, maybe, well, we are spirits. But when we discuss about it, also helps. We are spirits. What does it mean when we say that we are spirits?
Immortal being.
We are immortal beings. We are not mortal beings. We are immortal beings. What does it mean? That we, through the law of reincarnation, came back to earth, continue our journey of evolution, but as we are not a physical body, sooner or later, in one way or another, we free ourselves from the physical body, but we continue alive. We continue learning. So we are immortal beings created by God, simple and ignorant, and we are on the journey of evolution.
Due to the love of God, We have been created simple and ignorant, and we're not a blank sheet.
Correct.
So we have imprinted in our astral body, in our physical body, experiences that have created the personas that we possess now. If we're disincarnated, we may be stuck to one persona, whereas in fact we have been several different personas in different lives, and if we open up to it, we'll be able to see the benefactors ready to show us a way forward towards another one, which is beautiful because it teaches us not to be attached to what we think we are, because we don't know exactly who we are yet, because we're still going towards perfection.
Mm-hmm.
It also helps to reveal who we are. It also helps us to understand why it is that we go through what we go through, why we have our traumas, why we attract certain situations, and without blaming ourselves and without feeling like the worst beings in the world, we simply realize the cause and effect of our actions and our consequences, of our thoughts, of our behaviors. This revelation is so profound. It is so profound. If we really study who we are and where we come from, we'll become more at peace at where we are right now. We're able to go forward with a little bit more certainty that God is love, you know?
And a bit more lightened heart.
Yeah.
Because when you were speaking, really is true what we learn here, because we are immortal beings, therefore it brings a different meaning to us in relation to when we are on earth, how we interact with possessions, how we interact with things, always renewed understanding towards that nothing belongs to us. Everything belongs to God, even if I had money and bought it in that way, but it's not mine. So we decondition ourselves from the attachment, which we sometimes are enslaved and consequently suffer, because sooner or later we will need to renew ourselves. Understanding that as immortal beings, being on earth is a very short period comparing the continuation of our existences. So whatever we went through in terms of position, in terms of belongings, in terms of how we dressed, how we wear on the personality level more onwards, that is not really who we are. So as more as we study out it, who we really are, as you rightly said, will help us, once it comes to our time to free ourselves from the physical body, to listen to our spiritual benefactors, our dear friends who already are saying, hello, life continues beyond the physicality. Whatever trauma or pain or suffering that we go through or went through, that is not real anymore. Once we free from the physical body, that is over. New phase, new dimension of life, of existence and experiences opens up for all of us.
Because we study it doesn't mean that we're 100% there, but understanding I am not my name, I am not my body, I am not my work position, I am not only my mother's daughter, I am not only, whatever position that I find myself in, although I'm meant to honor every single one that I'm given, knowing it's temporary. It's that exercise, and that's the revelation of Spiritism, is constantly reminding us, listen, you're immortal. You're immortal.
Yes, that also reminds me of another aspect. Where we are going back to the spiritual world where we came to earth. And then also helps us to understand that we are not our mothers or fathers or children or positions, but also brings a great consoling process to us, the understanding that no one dies. Because quite often we may suffer a lot just to think, oh my God, my children, oh dear one died. And within Spiritism, which is inspiring us to see life from a more global understanding, no one dies. That is quite hopeful, that is quite consoling. We just carry on in different dimensions. It may take sometimes for us to meet each other for different circumstances that even we don't know, but for sure, sooner or later, we will get together again. And the main point, which is not written here in words, but we can read between lines, is for us to feel inspired and consoled and hopeful in relation to the natural laws of life, we need to educate or train ourselves within God's laws. That if then my child dies, as I may say, or disincarnate, I will learn the obedience in relation to God's will. Understanding that we are all children of God, the children are not my children, they are God's children. And if that happens in my life, I will submit myself. I will learn to submit myself. Understanding that God's will is always for the good of everyone. Is that making sense? Yeah. Anything else here? Why? Sorry. Huh?
Where we came from, so the second one, where we came from,
Mhm.
we already touched on that.
Okay.
And then where we're going. This is the motivational part, isn't it?
We can say where we are going in the spiritual world, but can we develop that more? What do we mean about it? Are we all going together in the same place in the spiritual world? What is the spiritual world? Let's imagine we all heard that once, the first time. What is a spiritual world? If you were to explain to someone who never heard it.
If we look at the world now, we're told by the spirits, it's not that I know, but just what we're told, is that the world is a rough copy of the spiritual world.
Okay, full stop. Who else has some inspirations?
So maybe there are some colonies. They are invisible for our eyes at the moment, carnates, but they are in the close to the atmosphere, so they can be the various parts. There are places that people work, and they help quite a lot. Some people have a bit of suffering. Some people are helping these other people, the other brothers and sisters who are being suffering. And there are cities, there are trees, there are animals, there are constructions.
Okay. Is Earth, where we are, a spiritual world? Just came to my mind. Did you hear the question? What is it about?
It can be.
It can be,
Yeah.
or is it?
Well, from Andrea Louise's book, it shows that they have a spiritual world here, but we're not always living a spiritual world.
What is a spiritual world when we say? A spiritual world are different places and different dimensions within the same reality.
Slower pace.
What do you mean?
It's a lot, exactly.
Yes, because to say spiritual world, someone may say, well, what's that about? But we need to develop. Is that making sense? Is it different dimension within the same reality?
So let's say here, which is the Spiritist Center, we'll use this as an example. We know that it's multiplied by size in the spiritual world. We know that it's not just us here studying, that there are other beings here learning with us or helping us. We're at different levels of evolution. But then I wonder if there's a different dimension on top of that that's watching.
I guess there is a different, which is on the top, which is below.
Exactly.
So it is infinite. Different dimensions with the same reality.
But it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's like we're walking around blind, you know?
Yes, we are. The spirits say. We on earth, we are almost like moving around that we cannot see anything. But when we start, it's true. This is why we take so long time to free ourselves from earth or from the planet trials and expiations. Because we come back and we still walk around as a physical body only and interact with life as a material reality. But we are immortal beings. We are on earth, which is one of God's houses. Let's put it like that. But it's the same reality, just a different dimension. And we are here to dematerialize ourselves. In which way? Spiritualizing ourselves. And as more as we choose to spiritualize ourselves, using our time, using our resources, our talents, or whatever it is, and really be more conscious, more aware what I'm choosing every moment, every second, because this is every moment, every second, my evolution is happening or not, because we are making choices. Is that making sense? Second by second, second by second. We saw the previous slide in what Aulo said, there is a constant constructive work. And then when We who are in the flesh now, sooner or later free ourselves from the physical body. Where do we go? In the spiritual world. Where is that? The spiritual reality in a different dimension. But it can also be very material there, isn't it? Because the spiritual reality can also be sometimes even equal than here, depending on our tendencies. Nothing changes just because I free myself from the physical body. The same that a lot of spirits are on Earth, and we can also see the different dimensions within the same planet. Some people are completely attached on the instant, completely attached to the matter. Others are more connected with the real life, and we can see that in different degrees on Earth. Is the same how it will happen later.
But it's interesting because when we read the books, we see that once we leave this prison, which is the physical body, everything that we are is heightened. So which is the importance of our honesty with ourselves to see where it is that we are, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Because just imagine the attachment to matter.
It's heavy.
Yeah.
It's very heavy. Energetically speaking, our habits, which is still are very gross, we are saying that in general, very attached to matter, we still are very heavy. When we say very heavy, it's on our astral body, on our perispirit, because all tendencies, they become energy levels. So it's more attached to matter. Instant we are in all our necessities, heavier we are. As less we are materialist, more we spiritualize ourselves, lighter our perispirit becomes. Why? Because our mental and emotional realities change. We are actualizing ourselves. They become more subtle, more refined. Is that making sense? Okay. And then it goes on here. And what are the present and past causes of pain and suffering? What does Spiritism reveal in relation to pain and suffering? What is different than the old concepts? What is
Not a punishment.
Is pain a reality in the level of evolution where we are? And how do we understand pain? It's not a punishment, as you said. If it's not a punishment, what represents pain?
Well, it feels like a punishment.
It does. Why does it feel? For some, or the majority of us.
Isn't too much of a child, to be honest. When I go through my own pains, and then it's like screaming, release me from this rather than learning from it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it becomes a suffering, I suppose.
Okay.
I think we learn in heaven and hell that each imperfection has a suffering. So if we suffer, it's because we're still imperfect.
Mm-hmm.
It could be because we don't want to forgive and we carry on suffering, or it could be because we're still very selfish, in my case, and then we still have this heavy feeling, but don't pretend we don't know where it's coming from.
Mm-hmm. So one way could be because of our selfishness, which would be the case for all of us, but varies in the degree, because the causes of pain and suffering is always based on pride and selfishness. So selfishness, pride as well, ignorance sometimes, or other times, because I'm not willing to forgive. And why I'm not willing to forgive? Because I'm still on the controlling issue, on my egoistic state of mind. Because I think I'm right. In reality, I'm wrong about myself in the way that I see. Because if it's causing pain, it's the evidence that I'm not right in relation to God's laws, which are love. Then we put a resistance up. And the resistance from the ego state of mind creates suffering and pain. Because we create the inner pressure. Is that making sense? But the purpose here, as it says, and what are the present and past causes of pain and suffering? Present, how we use our free will in the present. How we are developing the faculty of freedom given by God for us now in a responsible way, spontaneously choose to learn, to accept, and more live according to His laws, which have the objective to promote us spiritually, to grow, to evolve, to become happier, to become healthier. Is that making sense? So in the past, the causes from the past are based on the wrong use of our free will. Correct? and could also be in the present. But when we choose now, because we are in a better condition now than in the past, we are, let's say, more prone in order to make correct choices or better choices for ourselves. Are we okay here? Yeah. Then we move on. What does Spiritism comprise? Danusa, would you like to read it for us, please?
By beginning new concepts about human beings and everything that surrounds them, Spiritism touches on all areas of knowledge, human activities and behavior, thus opening a new era for the regeneration of humanity.
Okay, how do we understand this now? If you were to say with your own words, what Spiritism comprises? We were exploring about bringing new concepts about human beings and everything that surrounds them. What surrounds us here? That Spiritism brings new reference to us.
To me comes the idea of influences and other beings. Is realizing that we're never really alone.
Could we also say that in relation to us and everything around us, new concepts in relation to what family means to us? Is that making sense? Because from a body level, from a materialistic view, on this that we saw previously, we have quite limited vision in relation. Who is my father? Who is my mother? Who I am? Who is my brother? Who is my sister? Or who is my spouse? Or who are my children? Does that make sense? Who is my boss when we go into the professional field? So all the surroundings where we are, they bring different meanings when we reflect about what Spiritism brings to us as immortal beings who are moving within God's laws in order to grow and to learn wherever we are, with who we are. Okay?
Touches on all areas of knowledge. Now that's interesting because if we look at how Spiritism is developing in the world now, we see that different professions are taking their own stance with Spiritism. Like we have only, it's people that know about that area and manage to bring in the Spiritist teachings with that. It's interesting because it's quite a bold move to say that, this philosophy, it takes on all the areas of knowledge, science, philosophy, medicine, psychology, sociology, everything together, but with spiritual principles.
This is what we learned last week when we were exploring more about what Spiritism was. This is why I start with that. And we studied that Spiritism is a science, philosophy, and a religion. And we learned through the medium's book that it cannot be learned in a couple of days or hours. It is a science. When we say a science, it is a divine science. So if it takes years and years for us to study any area of knowledge on earth, medicine or whatever it is, then we refer to the divine science that is a study forever for us. Okay?
I think what exemplifies this really well is that book, O Consolador, the Consolador. So it divides in philosophy, and then science, and then religious. And on the subtitles of each of those three items, it divides in sociology, anthropology, I don't know, all the fields you can imagine.
We're going on that here, so talking already. Spiritism can and should be studied, analyzed, and practiced in all the fundamental aspects of life, such as scientific, philosophical, psychological, religious, ethical, moral, educational, and social, and so on. What can be Spiritism? What would be the main point from a scientific level? What would Spiritism teach on a scientific level?
I'm scared to say it because I don't really understand science, but it's the mediumship is a scientific level, I think.
Where is the focus or the objective of a study on the human scientific aspect? What is the objective? Matter. What is the objective from the Spiritist science? The spirit. The essence, the objective of the study is the spirit. It's already very different. Is that making sense? And now when we study about Spiritism in a philosophical level, what is different than the ordinary philosophical theories? Is everything different within Spiritism from a philosophical level?
We've got Socrates right at the beginning of the Gospel.
Sorry?
We've got Socrates right at the beginning of the Gospel, so
I don't know.
Cynthia?
It's not so different because I think that we see small truths in all of them because we have like in the 14th century it was the cards talking about the Gita and we talk about the Gita like in the relationship but the difference they just have the Socrates like the fed talking about the existence of the soul. I think in Spiritism now we understand things a bit more clear.
Okay, because there is a new wording coming to our minds and hearts. So we are referring to the old knowledge in a new way. Is that making sense? From a philosophical level within Spiritism is helping us to understand where we came from. It's not from my dad and mother. I came from God. And then we start the philosophical aspects and questions that will be much more deeper than here and now. It's always building on any field of knowledge. Yeah, and then it says psychological. What does Spiritism? Why is it important to understand Spiritism from a psychological perspective?
because we are psychological beings, aren't we?
Psychological aspect is fundamental within Spiritism because Spiritism is a psychological proposal for all of us. So much so that Allan Kardec, when he wrote the Spiritist magazine, he put there the Journal of Psychological Studies. There we are coming from, based on our Journal of Psychological Studies. Because everything is referring to us as spirits, as psychological and emotional beings, and not biological beings. And our tendencies do not start, as Freud said, that when we are born in a new body, we come as a blank sheet. Jung already said, no. The child, when it's born, comes with a journal. What did he mean? Exactly here what we are referring. The immortal being who is coming back to earth through a new body is an old being with old systems, with old conditionings, with old habits. And we come back here as we started with ours today to re-educate ourselves, to change, to grow, to actualize ourselves. Anything else? And then religious. What do we learn about religion? What is the Spiritism telling us within the field of religion?
The moral teachings of Christ.
The moral, ethical teachings of Christ. What do we understand about that? Moral, ethical teachings of Jesus. What is that differing from other aspects?
It differs that we don't say that the church saves the soul.
Okay, so for us, religion does not mean, as we believed in centuries and centuries, is a church, is a place. That is not what the superior spirits are teaching us. So what is religion for us? Is an inner, internal place based on the soul, within the natural laws that we bring within us. Of course, when we are on the physical level, we need to have places where we gather, where we study, where we worship, and so on. But within Spiritism, that doesn't mean religious in that sense. Because the religion aspect being ethical and moral values within, we activate religiosity. We stimulate our real values, the virtues, which are the germs given by God, which are part of our essence, which we are potentializing ourselves. And we learn to live fraternally amongst people, not just amongst the spiritists, among people in general. Different nations, different cultures, different backgrounds, ourselves incarnates, those who are with us in the spirit, because it opens our mind. We are never alone. We also have brothers and sisters who are always with all of us, through the way that we think, through the way that we feel, through the way that we behave, we attract others. Okay? And then ethical, moral, what do we understand about ethical values or moral values. What is that? Moral within Spiritism is the same, but it means moral on earth. Do we have different definitions of moral? Yes. What is it? What is moral in one culture may not be in another, isn't it? We have that on earth. Why is that? Hello?
It's moral for men, not for God. And as men and women are limited, and they are evolving and progressing in life, so these laws can change, like moral laws, the costumes and habits, they can change through time, because we are learning. But for God's eye, God's law, they don't change.
So God's law are immutable.
Yes.
And human law is mutable. And the human law being mutable is changeable. And is going in direction to God's law. That making sense? Educational. How does Spiritism, what is important is study Spiritism in relation to education.
Spiritism awakens the love for studying in us, the love for reflecting, the love for seeking out knowledge. So that's how I see the educational process. Emmanuel has already said that our educational system on earth needs to be completely reviewed. So we're still very much coming out of the caves when it comes to education. We're still growing from outside in, rather than developing that education.
I think it is Leon Denis. That is the main point, yeah? In general speaking, when we refer education on earth, is that a movement from the others to us or us in relation to us? Is it from outside in, the way that in general on earth is happening? Yes. What is the Spiritism teaching us? What means the educational process? Where is that coming? Inside out. Because we bring all the natural resources and knowledge within already since our creation. And now Spiritism helping us as we continue our studies and studying ourselves as psychological and emotional beings within the divine science, within the philosophical aspect that we are immortal, considering the law of cause and effect, and we are here now. We be our own educators. Educate our minds, educate our hearts, educate our thinking, educate our feeling, educate our behavior. Always in an ethical way, always within the values that are good today for us and for everyone, and are the same values which are good tomorrow for us and everyone. The virtues is focused not on intellectual only, but especially on emotional education. And social, of course, when we study Spiritism, knowing that embraces all different knowledge, on the social level, of course, when we start from the individual, it impacts the social. And has a great impact on the social level. It's starting with the first point on the social level, at home, on the family level, and then broader, to the school, to the workplace, to the community, to society. What kind of benefits does Spiritism bring us on a social level? When we study Spiritism, which kind of knowledge that we learn, that we really incorporate within ourselves on a social level when we are in a social setting?
Maybe tolerance.
Learn to be more tolerant. Why is that important for us?
Because we understand there are different views. Everybody's learning in their own unique process, and we need to understand that our views are not the only truth. So we need to be humble and try to understand what other views are different. But we understand we are all brothers and sisters in God.
Yes, and we are all unique. Although we are all on a journey of evolution, but we are in different steps, let's say. And we are all learning. So yes, that is a good point. What else?
That you need others to evolve.
Correct.
So not only to make a family and everything, but because they are a mirror for us, for our shadows we can see and change it.
Okay, so we cannot evolve alone, which is really part of God's laws to help us to get out of the selfish way how we perceive ourselves. Let's imagine we are all clothed today, yeah? Did we do that? Really? Did we do that? Flaudenice still is well behind. She didn't get a question. Did we do the clothing that we wear? No? Who did it?
Mine was made in China.
In China, in India, whoever. Then we go back and see how many people have been involved already for us to be using the dress or the clothes or whatever. And so with everything, sometimes we think, oh my God, it's only me. No. That is selfishness. God's laws are right. They are made for us to learn to cooperate. And when we stop thinking, really we understand. When we go, it's so easy, isn't it? We have the money, we go to the supermarket, we take whatever we want to product, pay it, and off we go. But who already worked there behind that scenario for that to be ready for us? They have other people working, they have other hands moving. It just seems... Where are you?
I was thinking about when he said in one of the lessons that he sent to us that he was thinking about how much he already spent to be in this reincarnation, like how many kilos of food and how many liters of water, the clothes and everything. It's a huge investment.
It is.
Where we are.
Yes.
Because I never thought about that. It's a weird thing.
It says, Danusa said previously, we are on earth working blindly. We just take things. But again, when we study deeply in a loving way, of course, that shows really our immaturity on a spiritual level. How much has been given to us? When we think about what is the major aspect that we need in order to live, even easy is to eat. And I say, no. What is it?
The air we breathe.
The air that we breathe. We all breathe. Oh, I didn't know that. Well, we know now. We breathe. Where is the air coming from?
Plants.
From the plants. Where do the plants come from? Can we see how much is already given freely to us? And it's almost like we are shut down and we just don't see things. How long can we stay without breathing? Don't test. Let's move on. Okay. Then now we start to study about the Spiritism to the end, by the reveals, by the Comprises. And now we start about what are the main principles of Spiritism. Who knows what are the main principles of Spiritism? Never heard. Don't know what you're talking about. This is why we're here to learn. First, God. Spiritism teaches the universe is God's creation. It encompasses all rational and non-rational beings, both animate and inanimate, material and immaterial. How would we frame it with our own words that could also help others who are thinking with us? God, because different beings, different levels of evolution, we have learned different things. Some people may not even believe that God exists. Others may. So what do I understand when we say the universe is God's creation? Of course, we are also learning, we are also progressing in our thinking, but how do we understand that today?
So, at the beginning of the Spirits book, Allan Kardec directs us into already thinking differently about God, where he asks, what is God rather than who is God? Mm-hmm. So taking away the anthropomorphological, so taking away the human image from God and seeing that everything in the creation is God. This is something we're trying to wrap our heads around, that everything that exists is God, that his laws are perfect in every way. So, and when they say animate and inanimate, it means from the macro to the micro.
Mm-hmm. Micro.
And it's something that we still need to ponder over, because we're limited in our language, we're limited in our understanding, we still have loads of veils to uncover. But it's important for us to, and when we first did this study, if I could just share my own personal experience, when we first did the study, I was really frustrated. So why are we talking about this? This is too complicated. We're never going to get our heads around it. And then the group of people that were around were very lovingly saying, well, we need to start somewhere. So we need to start reflecting on modifying our vision of what is God, on how we interact with it. Because then we'll see how we interact with matter, spirituality, and other things when we see that it's all part of the creation.
And even if you may start, which we always start, I also started one day, study about Spiritism, which I wasn't born in a Spiritist family, and I start from scratch, study. Didn't know much, but carry on studying, gradually, bit by bit. We learn all. We don't need to be frustrated. We don't need to think, oh my God, am I stupid? No, we are intelligent beings in the universe, created by God. We are all learning. What do we understand these days about the universe? Remember, what we understand today doesn't mean that we have to find a word about it, because it's quite complex for us from where we are. The universe is God's creation. What comes to our minds? It's so huge that I get lost in the middle of it, isn't it?
And that is what we can see. You said it's huge. The universe we can see through machines and everything. But imagine what we can't see.
It's much larger.
So we cannot even think. So that is so complex thing, because we think creation as we create something, as Danuta said, as a human being creates something, and it's impossible to think like that. So.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we don't have the full knowledge because, again, when we look in a loving way, we are on Earth. The planet Earth, in the scale of evolution, is the planet of trials and expiation. That means we're in the beginning. So we won't have, or let's say, we have little understanding in relation to the real picture. But that should not be an aspect that we block ourselves or inhibit ourselves, but should be a motivation for us to carry on the study. Because if I say today, this is so complex, I don't want to listen, I shut up, then I'm blocking myself. Because as a mortal being, sooner or later, I need to understand everything about the natural laws in the universe. Imagine ourselves, we bring within the potentials for us one day to walk alone in the universe and have control of everything. Is that making sense? So when we start now, little by little, to change, to actualize our thinking and be willing, because we need to activate the heart. We need to activate our willpower to learn, to make effort. Then it also becomes easier because we are already opening ourselves for it. Is that okay? Then we move on. All the laws of nature and divine laws become God's laws because God is their altar. They cover both the physical and moral laws. How do we understand this aspect which Spiritism teaches us?
I just want to know if you synthesize that, because that, when we take just that sentence, we could do a whole year of study. Because when we look at the natural laws, the divine laws, that cover the physical world and the moral laws, I mean, like, when we break it down.
Yes, if you would, I want to start the question here. All the laws of nature. Which are the laws of nature? That also would open up. And then if we would go through each law of nature, which also would open up the field of reflecting. Are divine laws because God is the altar, as we believe. Yeah? As we cannot understand God in the level where we are, where do we look at? Nature, of course.
I would say inside us, because we always looking outside, looking for God. And if you think how we create, we are created with a single cell, 2 single cells, and we are created like that. And if you start thinking that's physical level, it's not more than that, it's already something quite marvelous. So do not look outside, inside, and you can feel it instead of trying to imagine something, a figure or something like that.
But also we can look outside. The spirits teach us, which is nature. I don't know who said nature, because nature is God's presence for us in this stage and the level where we are. Imagine when we observe, and again, we need to be open for that on the emotional level, to look at a flower. Everybody likes flowers. No. People look at flowers. Or they say, look at that, how beautiful that is. What does that show? The different levels internally, but it's God manifesting. When a baby, that's you said in 2 cells, it's just a biological. No, it's not just a biological. We study a lot about that. There's a lot of work going on before these cells come together on the spiritual level. So God can be seen, perceived for us here through nature. When we observe the marvelous movements that manifest in front of our eyes, that a lot of aspects even the scientific world haven't fully discovered, but happened. God is the supreme intelligence, first cause of all things. God is eternal, immutable, immaterial, unique, all-powerful, supremely just in good. What do we understand so far when we heard God is the supreme intelligence? That can be difficult to be taken in when we, as God's children, do not perceive ourselves as God's children. We think that we are the best in the universe. Can that happen? Yes, it does. We learn through other brothers and sisters when our pride is so high that we don't perceive or not conceive anyone higher than us. Sorry.
When we think that God is unjust, certain things, it's like, Lord, you got everything else right, but in my life, I'll take care of it because I think you kind of missed me out. But that's okay because you've got loads of people to take care of. Don't worry, I'll take care of myself. And that's and then when you start reflecting the supreme intelligence and just and good, it takes a lot of
supreme intelligence. Would that also be in a loving way, in a humble way, for us to think about, well, God is the supreme intelligence. How do I perceive myself when it comes to intelligence? Are reflections that we make. Yes? Always God will be in front of me. Is, as we said on Sunday, God is the creator and we are the creatures. Never try to get out of this position, because then we are messing our lives and existence and creating pain and suffering, as we mentioned previously. But when we follow this natural position in the universe, we develop inner order, which comes from God, which we bring the seeds within already. Is that making sense? Okay, now we carry on then to study about what? The attributes of God, which we just said here. The previous one, yes? God is eternal, immutable, immaterial. We go through each one of them to study a bit for us to explore. That is fundamental for us. So in the Spirit's book on the question 13, we are talking about, refer to the attributes of God. And that is the question. When we state that God is eternal, infinite, immutable, immaterial, unique, all-powerful, and supremely just and good, don't we have a complete idea of God's attributes? That was a very intelligent question that Allan Kardec made around 160 years ago. And I just bring part of the answers that the Enlightened Spirits are presenting to us. And they say, Barbara, read it for us instead of me reading it.
From your own point of view, yes, because you believe that in so stating, then you therefore have named all of them. Nevertheless, you should understand that there are things that transcend the intelligence of the most intelligent person. Things your language cannot define.
Because language is limited to your ideas and sensations. So what do we learn now with the question? How is that coming to us? It's interesting because they start to say, it's almost like, for me, they start to dialogue indirectly with me. From your point of view, what do they mean? What do the Enlightened Spirits mean that they say? Sorry, Flo Denise?
Up to where you can receive.
up to where I am in my level of evolution, how far I developed myself ethically and morally, how far I developed myself through my reasoning, through my emotional development, spiritually, how far I put effort into to study, to reflect, to analyze, and to make sense, and to make connections, to develop new values, new concepts. And then they carry on, because you believe that in so stating them, you therefore have named all of them. What do we learn here? So the spirits are present in some of them, but there are more than them. Can you read that? It's not written here, but we need to learn to read between lines. Because we are also, they gave almost like the general information, the Enlightened Spirits, and we need to put effort into to read what they haven't written there. Yeah. Nevertheless, you should understand that there are things that transcend the intelligence of the most intelligent person. What comes to mind?
Our intelligence, for what that developed is, it's very limited. To think that Allan Kardec wrote the studies over 100 years ago, and he had to come up with words to describe, to explain things, to have that meaning understood. And nowadays, how many more words we have to describe other things that we came to understand through these studies, or in a different way. So many things that are nowadays that it wasn't there at those times, and there's a new vocabulary, a completely new world of words. So still we are developing, and our intelligence are very, very limited.
It's still very at the beginning. The other aspect is very important for us to understand. For us not to think that we are the most intelligent person on earth. When we develop humbleness, that becomes more at ease. It doesn't mean that we don't have any intelligence. We already conquer some intelligence, but we are learning. It's the best position to put ourselves. And then they say, things your language cannot define. I love that. Because we think, oh my God, our vocabulary is so huge. And the spirits come and say, your language cannot define. What do they mean? We don't have words to tell you certain things, because you don't have words how to define that. And we read and we study that a lot with André Luiz. They try to say, well, this is what we can say so far for you. We cannot go further. You wouldn't understand that. And even so, we have some words on earth. They are completely misunderstood sometimes, isn't it? Because they have different meanings, depending where each person comes from the emotional level.
But even if we look at geniuses trying to explain ideas to us, they get to a point of such frustration that they need a board to draw things out for us to look at the drawings, because they can't be expressed in words.
Yeah.
What transcends intelligence?
What transcends intelligence? What do you mean? Where are you?
Says that transcends intelligence of the most intelligent person.
Nevertheless, you should understand that there are things that transcends the intelligence of the most intelligent person. That means that transcends the level of intelligence that we developed so far. Because our intelligence is an attribute of the spirit, and we are developing that.
Well, what is it that transcends intelligence?
God's intelligence, the Creator's intelligence, the God who is the supreme cause of everything, everyone. That transcends our intelligence so far. Does that make
Love transcends intelligence.
Here we are talking about God's laws on us, because we are talking about God. He's helping us to understand that whatever we developed, we are intelligent beings in essence, but we are evolving, progressing, and God is already the most intelligent being. He created us, and we transcend it. Unfortunately, our time is coming to the end, and of course we carry on next week on starting on the main principles here, where we are referring and studying and reflecting about the attributes of God. For today, we are coming to the end, and as always, as we reach the end of our meeting, we close it with our hearts and minds full of joy and gratitude for these unique and special moments in our existences, as immortal beings as we all are, ourselves and all of those in the spirit who are here with us in this study group. Position ourselves as students, as we all are, about the Spiritism, about God, who is a loving Father towards every and each one of us. who created us simple and ignorant, and gave us the faculty of freedom for us to gradually develop it according to His will, according to the law of love, helping us to grow, to mature, and even to heal ourselves from within, as we potentialize us more and more in a gradual way, in a loving way, achieving greater inner peace as we choose to be more forgiving, more patient, more fraternal towards every and each one that comes along in our way. And in that way, our gratitude for the spiritual benefactors who are here with us and responsible for this study, for their love, their patience, their kindness towards every and each one of us. And we ask the greatest friend of all, Jesus, to bless us with His light, with His peace and love. May we continue our journey throughout the week with more strength and courage to improve ourselves, to be better today than we were yesterday, and tomorrow better than today, expanding self-love, self-respect, on constantly in every moment. And in that way, we conclude our meeting today. So be it. Much peace to all.